So today I'm going to show you how to bind a set of keys within ST to simulate another arbitrary set of key presses. So if you're new to this channel, remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below because it'll really help the channel out. I'm aiming for 1,000 subs and any help would be really appreciated. So now that's out of the way, let's get started. Good afternoon everyone and welcome back to the channel. So you might be wondering what exactly I mean by binding a key press to simulate another arbitrary set of key presses. So if you take a terminal like iTerm for example, you can bind keys within that to do things like say you have a binding within Vim for example. You can bind for example ctrl L to print out say ++. And you can't actually bind ctrl L within Vim, but you can bind something to ++. So what you can do is bind a key within your terminal that will then press that key, and then what that will do is then Vim is then able to read that and then run your macro. Or another example is, say you want to bind a key to run a command. Like for example, ST doesn't have a way to clear or to run history. So what you could do is bind a set of keys to run clear and then press enter. So I'll show you an example of what I'm actually doing. So if we switch over to this screen, I'll bring up screen key for this. So screen key, so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So I'm actually using that example I mentioned before where I have ctrl/ printing out ++. So if I just press ctrl/ right now, you'll see that will print out ++. And I've got clear, which is bound to Ctrl-Shift and C, and that will clear my screen, as you can see, Control and capital C. And I've also got a command for history. So if I press Ctrl-Shift-H, you'll see Control capital H, and that will then print out my history. So I'll turn off screen key now because that might get a little annoying once we're going through the code. So this is actually really simple to do. There's not actually a patch for it though, so I'm going to step through the modifications of the C code with you. So the first thing that we're going to want to do, obviously we will bring up our source code for ST. So go into where I'm keeping it, which is in my repos folder. So the first thing we're going to do is modify the structure that's actually storing the arguments that you're using for a command that you're passing with a key press. So if we look at the actual structure for a key press, so if we go down to key bindings, I think it is, something like that, shortcuts. So you've got this little thing right at the end here, and you might be wondering where this is actually defined because you can't have generic types within C, not that I know of at least. So that is being defined. I'm not going to use the node tree just so it's clear where I'm actually going. That is actually defined within the st.h file, not the st.c file. There are some types actually defined in there, but this one is in the h file. Don't know why, not exactly sure what the reason for putting in here is. I don't know, someone could probably tell me. And the thing we're looking for in here, so I'm just going to jump straight to it, is called arg. So it is a type def union. So when you first open it up, it's not going to have all of this in here. I believe it'll have int I, uint, ui, float f, and maybe this const void pointer here, but I'm not sure. The one that we're going to add though is this char pointer, and you can call it whatever you want, but if you want to be consistent with what I'm doing, I would call it the same thing. So we're going to call it CA. So if you've never done C before, basically what this is effectively a string. So we're going to work with this, and there are other ways you can do strings in C, but we're going to be using this because I'm not good with C, and this is the first way that I found that actually works. So if you have a more effective way to do it, go right ahead. But this is what we're doing. So once you've added in that line in here, then we're going to go over to another file. So we can quit out of this, or make sure you save it. Don't just quit out of it like I did. So the next, actually no, sorry. We did need that file again. I made a mistake. So what we're going to do while we're in here is we're also going to define the function or functions that we're going to add. So I've actually got two functions. You really only need this first one, this void kwrite. Obviously you can call it whatever you want, but make sure you're passing in the same argument. So pass in a const arg pointer. We've also got this kexec_char, which is basically the same thing, but I'm basically just printing out a new line character at the end, so I don't have to remember to put in new line characters. But the one that you absolutely need if you're going to be following along with me is this kwrite. Obviously, as I said, call it whatever you want. Call it the same thing if you want it to be easy though. Okay, so now we can go over to the other file we're going to modify. So once you're done with the st.h file, we're now going over to the file where you actually define the functions. So that is the st.c file. So it obviously doesn't matter where you define the function in here, but I have defined them where all of the other functions are defined. So if we go right down, so it'll be on something under line 709 or so. It'll depend if you have any patches installed, obviously, because that's going to change around where stuff goes. But I've got my stuff directly under a function called exec char. So this is like right at the top of the K functions. Obviously, you can put it wherever you want, so don't be too worried about actually putting it exactly where I'm putting it. Okay, so now I'm going to step you through a little bit of C code. I'm not great at C, so if someone is and they know a much better way to do this than I do, then feel free to change this. So we're going to go over this kwrite first. So what we need to do is we need to define a buffer that is big enough to actually store the string. So the way we're doing that is we're creating a char buffer, we are making this an array, and we are making it the length of that option that we just created before, that CA option. So the way that you access that through that argument that we're passing in, so the argument is called A, the way you access that is with the pointer dereference operator, which is this right here. So this dash and then greater than, less than, whatever that arrow is, whichever arrow that direction is. And then we add 1 onto that. So I can't remember exactly why we had to add 1 onto that. I think the buffer is just 1 short or something like that, but if you have that off, it'll cut off the last character. So just know that that's there. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can do prints within a C context, but we're going to be using snprintf. So the way that we do this is we pass in the buffer and we pass in the size of the buffer. So to do that, you just write size of and then whatever you called the buffer. And then we're doing this right here. So basically what this will do, if I'm not mistaken, is it will replace here, will be replaced with this argument. Once again, not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what that does. It's been a little while since I've written this. But if you just write out exactly what this is here, it will work. And then we're going to be using a function that is defined within st. So this is a function called ttywrite. We pass in the buffer, we pass in the size of the buffer, and we pass in 0. Now, I don't remember why we pass in 0. We're going to go find that tty function, if I can write it out properly. It's ttywrite. Let's see. So, ttywrite may echo. I don't remember what the may echo thing did, but if we pass in 0, then it won't do whatever that echo was supposed to mean. So I'm not 100% sure about the source code for this. I know that it works. I absolutely know that it 100% works because I'm using it within my code right now. But if you need me to explain exactly what it's doing, I'm a little sketchy there because I haven't really looked too much into it. I kind of just found something that worked. So yeah, if anything I'm saying doesn't make 100% sense if you know what you're talking about, then that's pretty much why. So we'll jump back to where I had my bit of code. So this kwrite. So if you want the kexecchar function like I also have, then we're going to be doing something slightly different, but it's fundamentally the same thing. So instead of adding 1 onto the length of the buffer, we're going to add 2 this time because we're going to be adding another character on. And then the next thing we're going to be doing is with this snprintf. This is the only other change. So in here, we have this %s, and then we have a second %s. So I was right before about that being the string replacement. So what this basically says is where this first %s is, it'll replace it with this first argument. Where this second %s is, it'll replace it with the second argument. So what we're doing here is we're taking that thing that we're putting into that arg structure, and then we are appending a \n to it. So what that will effectively do is just act like you're running the enter key. So you'll print that out to the terminal and then it'll instantly put a \n, and that'll kind of act like an enter. So it'll run whatever you put in there if it's within a shell. Obviously, if you don't put it within your normal shell, it'll just put a new line character there. But I'm using this with clear. So if I put that into my shell, then that will print out clear. It will print out a \n, and the \n will act like I've just pressed enter and will run the command. The same thing with the history command as well. Okay, so now that you've done that, you've basically done everything you need to do to lay down the base work. So the next thing we can actually do is bind some keys. So we save this, and now we can jump back to the config.h file. So we open this up, and we jump down to where our shortcuts are. I think it was capitalized. Yes, it was. Okay. So in here, this is very, very simple. So I've done a video on how to actually do key bindings before. So if you're not 100% sure, I'm not going to be stepping through everything here, like how to find key sims and things like that. But I'm going to go through the basics for now. The first thing we have to put in is our mask. So this is the modifier key we're going to be using. So if you don't want to have any modifier key, then you also have the option of doing this xk_no_mod, and that will then have no mask. But you have to be very careful what you do that with, because if you bind that to just a regular letter for your key sim here, what's going to happen is whenever you press that letter, it's going to run that function. And that's a very bad thing, so make sure you're using modifiers unless you know exactly what you're doing. So if we go through one that I have in here, so I've got this term mod, and that is bound to control mask and shift mask. So that is when I press the control key and the shift key. Okay, and this control mask is obviously just for when I press control. Mod key, I believe, is for, yeah, mod 1 is alt. So when I press the alt key and then some other key with it. Okay, so key sim, this is the key that you press alongside the modifier key. So in here, we've got my term mod and pressing C, or we've got my term mod and pressing H, or we've got control mask and pressing /. So if you want to find the names of these key sims, go check out that video. But basically, it's pretty much what the key is named, prepended with a xk_. So it should be pretty clear by what's in there with the rest of the other keys. You can probably guess it. Then the next thing we're going to go with is the function. So if we want to do kexec_char or kwrite. So for the clear and history, we're using kexec_char, and for this ++, I'm using kwrite. So obviously, whatever you want to do with it, use whichever function you need. If you're only using the kwrite and you don't feel like putting kexec_char, it's very easy to simulate. All you have to do is just, instead of using kexec_char, you just use kwrite, and then in here, the argument, you just put a \n on the end. The only reason I'm not doing this is because I know that I'm going to forget to put \n's in there, and it's going to cause me a lot of problems. So if you want to just save yourself some difficulty, include both the functions, but if you don't think you're ever going to forget the \n, there's really no point doing it, so do whatever you want to do. Okay, so now assuming that you've done absolutely nothing wrong, you've copied exactly what I've given you, we should be able to quit out of this and quit out of here. Go back into that directory because I didn't actually CD into it. And now we should be able to uninstall ST and reinstall it and have our keys actually working. I haven't changed anything, obviously, so I'm not going to have any difficulties. If you have any difficulties, let me know in the comment section down below. I'll see what I can do to help. But as I said, I'm not perfect with C, so if it's some random little thing that you missed, I might not be able to help, but I'll see what I can do. So we're going to go sudo make uninstall. We need to run it with sudo, and that will uninstall the application. Obviously, if you don't already have it installed, that's not going to be a problem for you. And the next thing we're going to do is remake it. So sudo make clean install, and that's going to take a couple seconds to go through. If yours fails, I'll try to help you, but yeah. Anyway, now we should be able to quit out of this, open up ST, and all of our keys should still work. So if I press Ctrl+Shift+C, that clears it, Ctrl+Shift+H, that will then bring up history, and then Ctrl/ will bring up ++. So I might as well show you what I'm actually doing with that ++. So in my vimrc, I've basically got the nerd commenter plugin bound to run when I use ++. So what that will do, if I bring up, let's see, actually my vimrc will probably work for this. And say I want to comment out, for example, this color scheme part. Now, if I press Ctrl/, what that's going to do is basically use the comment syntax for my vimrc and comment it out. There we go. The reason that I did that is because Vim doesn't allow you to bind to Ctrl/, but I want to use it because Ctrl/ is the same binding that you use within VS Code. And I kind of just wanted to keep that binding. So that's one of the really good uses for this. If there's keys that some random application in your terminal doesn't let you bind to, but your terminal will let you bind to, then you can actually use this. Obviously be very careful, because if you do things like bind to, for example, Ctrl+C, then you're not going to be able to quit out of applications properly. Or it might try to double bind it. I'm not sure. I haven't tried binding to Ctrl+C, but with things that already have predefined bindings, be very careful with them, especially if they're things that could be as damaging as that. So I think that's pretty much everything for this video. So if you like this video, remember to smash that like button and leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think. It is really, really hot today, so my face is probably really shiny because it is, I think, 39 degrees or something stupid. So hopefully it's not too bad in the video, but I'm not sure. I'm not re-recording it, that's for sure. So if you want to see more videos like this, remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below because it'll really help the channel out. I am flying towards 1,000 subscribers, so any help will be really appreciated. If you want to see my videos on a platform that isn't YouTube, go check out my library, and also go check out my Discord if you want to chat with me. Up on that corner, I've got the playlist that there's videos in, so go check that out if you want to see other videos like this. And down below, I've also got my support link, so if you want to support the channel, then feel free to go there. Obviously, all of my videos are going to remain available for free, so don't feel pressure to actually go support me. But if you want to, go right ahead. And also, I've got my Twitter and my Mastodon, so go check those out if you want to get video updates. I think that's pretty much everything for me, so I'm out.